Hi guys, it's now time to talk about questions 5 and question 6. So question 5, we need to discuss the usefulness and limitations of sources 4 and 5 for an historian studying the reasons for US tactics during the Vietnam War. So in order for us to get the full 5 marks, what we need is to use the correct structure and then to talk about the usefulness and limitations of both sources. The best way to do this is to write 4 paragraphs. One that has a look at the usefulness of source 4 in studying the reasons for US tactics, one that looks at the limitations of source 4, and then again the usefulness of source 5 and the limitations of source 6. Now, one of the documents that I've uploaded under Sector called Source Analysis Requirements gives us, in a whole heap of detail, different kinds of uses and limitations of different kinds of sources. Now, if we have a look at the two sources, what we've got for sources 4 and 5, we have a US Marine giving his account. So this one's going to be a primary source. And then source 5 is a historian's account. So someone who wasn't there at the time, but is able to give us a really good understanding of what has taken place. And so if we have a look at this document over on the right-hand side, and we scroll down here to private documents, diary or letter. This one gives us a bit of information about what might be useful about source number 4. If we have a look here, the uses. So it gives a person's viewpoint, emotion, feelings, or attitudes. If it's written at the time, then it gives a sense of immediacy to the event. So what that means is that this person was there at the time and writing things as it was happening. So there's not really the possibility of people forgetting the events if they've talked about them right when it happened. Generally, we can find that those things could be seen to be quite reliable. But if we have a look at the limitations here on the right-hand side, it is the author's viewpoint and may be coloured according to his or her bias. So we've only got one person talking about the event, and they may see things through what some people might call rose-coloured glasses. They see things perhaps differently to the way other people might have. If this happened to be written long after the event, there may be things that this Marine has forgotten or things that this Marine has deliberately left out. And so probably what we would need to do is to have a look at other evidence and see whether there is a closeness of the information, whether the account that this Marine has made is similar to the accounts that other people have made. And if those two sources can be cross-referenced, if they're both saying the same thing, then we can consider them to be fairly accurate. If we have a look at source 5, what we have is a historian's account. And so if we have a look at the source on the right-hand side again, the usefulness, well, it's useful because it gathers information from a number of sources in presenting a description of people, places, and events. The source isn't very long, but it does give us a pretty good indication of just how widespread the bombings really were during the Vietnam War. Again, though, if we have a look at the limitations, the author has his or her bias. So they may have chosen texts, or may not have chosen texts rather, that disagree with their bias. So if they think a certain way about an event, then they're going to try and find sources that support their view. They're not going to use sources that contradict or challenge what they think. We also need to consider the year of publication because opinions may have become outdated if more information has become available over time. If we have a look here, it's 1980 that this was written, so not that long after the end of the Vietnam War. So it's probably going to be fairly reliable. So when we're talking about the nature of the sources, we want to make sure that we are talking about the usefulness and the limitations. One of the other things that we can talk about the nature of the source. That's what that document there, the PDF, is useful for, but also the content of the source. So what is useful about what we see there in the content and what might be limited for both sources 4 and 5. If you can do that, then that will be quite awesome.